You've probably felt it before. That strange moment when you agreed to something, even though deep down you didn't want to. Maybe it was a friend, a stranger, or even someone you trusted. And afterward, you sat there thinking, why did I say yes? That moment, right there, that's not weakness. That's manipulation. And the truth is, most people don't even realize when it's happening to them. Because real mind manipulation doesn't look aggressive. It doesn't look evil. It doesn't even feel wrong at first. It feels normal, comfortable. Sometimes, it even feels like your own decision. But here's the uncomfortable reality. There are people out there who understand human psychology so well, they can guide your thoughts, shape your emotions, and influence your decisions without you ever noticing. Not with magic, not with force, but with simple, subtle techniques. And today, you're about to see them. Not to use them on others, but to protect yourself from being used. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Let's start with something simple. Imagine you walk into a store. You're not planning to buy anything. But within 10 minutes, you walk out with something you didn't need. Was it the lighting? The music? The way the product was placed? Or was it something deeper? Something psychological? Because manipulation doesn't start with words. It starts with environment. There's a reason why luxury stores feel calm and slow, while fast food places are loud and bright. One makes you stay longer. The other makes you decide faster. And when your brain is rushed, you don't think. You react. That's the first layer of manipulation, controlling the pace of your mind. But it gets deeper, much deeper. Because the most dangerous manipulation is the one that plays with your identity. Let me ask you something. Have you ever done something just because people would judge you if you didn't? That invisible pressure, that silent fear of being seen differently. That's not just social behavior. That's control. And the scary part is, you don't even see the person controlling you. Because sometimes, there is no person. Just a system. A pattern. A set of psychological triggers that have been used for decades on millions of people. And you might have been a part of it without even knowing. Now here's where it gets interesting. Because manipulation isn't always about forcing you. Sometimes, it's about giving you the illusion of choice. Think about this. When someone says, "Do you want A or B?" your brain immediately starts choosing between A and B, but rarely asks, "Wait, why am I choosing at all?" That's called a controlled choice. And once your brain enters decision mode, it stops questioning the bigger picture. It feels like freedom, but it's actually direction. Subtle, but powerful. And this is just the beginning. Because as we go deeper into this video, you're going to realize something uncomfortable. Some of your biggest decisions might not have been completely yours. Not your habits, not your preferences, maybe not even your beliefs. But don't worry, this isn't about fear. This is about awareness. Because once you understand how manipulation works, you stop being controlled, and you start seeing patterns others miss. In the next part, we're going to break down the first real technique, the one that silently rewires your trust without you even noticing. And once you understand it, you'll start seeing it everywhere. There's a moment, a very small, almost invisible moment, where trust begins. Not when someone proves they're honest, not when they show loyalty, but much earlier than that. It starts when your brain feels familiarity. Let me explain. Have you ever met someone for the first time, and within minutes, it felt like you've known them for years? They talk like you. They agree with your opinions. They laugh at the same things. And suddenly, you feel comfortable, safe, connected. But what if I told you that feeling can be created on purpose? This is the first technique, mirroring, and it's more powerful than it sounds, because humans are wired to trust people who are like them. It's not logical, it's biological. When someone reflects your behavior, your brain starts lowering its guard. Slowly, silently, without permission. Watch closely. If you cross your arms, they cross theirs. If you speak softly, they lower their tone. If you use certain words, they repeat them back to you. Not obviously, not immediately, but just enough for your subconscious to notice. And when that happens, your brain whispers, "This person understands me." But here's the twist. Understanding isn't always real. Sometimes it's just reflection. And the scariest part is, you won't even question it. Because it feels natural. It feels right. And once trust is built, influence becomes easy. Think about it. Would you listen more carefully to a stranger who feels distant? Or someone who feels like you? Exactly. And that's why mirroring works. It doesn't force you. It guides you. Quietly. Now imagine this. You're in a conversation, and the other person keeps agreeing with you. Not everything, just enough. They validate your thoughts, support your opinions, and suddenly, you start opening up more. You share more details, more emotions, more of you. And that's when control begins. Because the more you reveal, the more predictable you become. And once someone understands your patterns, they don't need to control you anymore. They just need to lead you. This is why some people can walk into a room full of strangers and within minutes become the most trusted person there. Not because they're honest, but because they know how to feel familiar. Now here's something even deeper. Mirroring doesn't just build trust. It creates attachment. Because your brain starts seeing that person as a reflection of yourself. And psychologically, we protect what feels like us. We defend it. We believe it, even when it's wrong. And that's where manipulation becomes dangerous. Because at that point, you're not just listening to them, you're trusting them. And once trust is in place, the next techniques become even more powerful. Because now, your guard is down, your mind is open, and your decisions are easier to influence. But don't get uncomfortable yet, because this is just the first layer. In the next part, we're going into something even more subtle. Something that makes you say yes without even realizing you had a choice. And once you see it, you'll start noticing it everywhere. In sales, in relationships, even in everyday conversations. There's something strange about the human mind. It hates being controlled. But at the same time, it loves making decisions. And that's exactly where manipulation finds its opening. Because you don't need to control someone directly if you can control their choices. Let's slow this down. Imagine someone asks you, "Do you want to start today or tomorrow?" At first, it feels like a simple question. Two options, two choices. You think you're in control. But look closer. The real decision, whether you want to start at all, was never given to you. And your brain didn't even notice. Because the moment options were presented, your mind shifted into decision mode, not questioning mode. That's the second technique, the illusion of choice. And once you see it, you realize how often it's used on you. Every day. Think about fast food menus. Do you want a medium or a large? Not, do you want it or not? Think about salespeople. Would you prefer the black one or the blue one? Not, do you actually need this? Even in conversations. Are you coming now or later? Not, do you even want to come? See what's happening? The bigger question disappears. And your brain, without realizing, accepts the frame that was given to it. Because questioning the frame takes effort. And your brain is designed to save energy. So it chooses the easiest path. Pick between the options. Move forward. Don't overthink. And that's where control slips in. Quietly. Naturally. Almost invisibly. Now here's where it gets dangerous. Because the more you make small decisions, the easier it becomes to make bigger ones. It's like your brain builds momentum. Yes, this makes sense. Yes, I agree. Yes, let's go ahead. And before you realize it, you've said yes to something you never fully examined. This is how people get pulled into things, not in one big step, but in small, guided choices. One after another. And each step feels harmless, until it's not. Now imagine someone who understands this deeply. They won't force you. They won't pressure you. They'll simply guide your path, one choice at a time. And by the time you reach the end, it feels like you chose it. But did you? Or were you just walking down a path that was already designed? That's the real question. And most people never stop to ask it. Because everything feels normal. Everything feels logical. Everything feels like their own decision. And that's why this technique is so powerful. Because it doesn't fight your mind, it works with it. It uses your natural behavior, your natural shortcuts, your natural need to decide, against you. Now pause for a second. Think about your last few decisions today. How many of them were completely yours? And how many were influenced by the way the options were presented? You might not like the answer, but that awareness, that's your power. Because once you start questioning the frame, you break the illusion. And when the illusion breaks, control disappears. But we're not done yet. Because the next technique doesn't just guide your choices, it locks you into them. It makes you stay committed, even when you know something is wrong. And once that happens, walking away becomes harder than staying. There's a quiet moment, a very subtle shift, where a simple yes turns into something much bigger. At first, it feels harmless. A small agreement, a tiny favor, something you don't even think twice about. Maybe someone asks you, "Can you help me with something quick?" You say yes. No pressure, no hesitation. Because it's small, it's easy, it feels right. But what you don't realize is that small yes just changed something inside your mind. Because once you commit, even in the smallest way, your brain starts aligning itself with that decision. Not logically, but psychologically. You begin to see yourself as someone who agreed. And once that identity is formed, your next decisions start following it. This is the third technique, the commitment trap. And it works in a way that feels almost unfair. Because it doesn't control you from the outside, it makes you control yourself. Let's go deeper. After that first small yes comes another request, slightly bigger, still reasonable, still not uncomfortable. And because you already said yes before, saying no now feels strange, almost wrong. So you agree again, and again, and again. Each step feels connected. Each decision feels consistent, until suddenly you're in a situation you never planned to be in. But walking away now feels harder than continuing. Why?
Because your brain hates inconsistency. It hates the feeling of saying, I was wrong. It hates breaking its own pattern. So instead, it justifies. It rationalizes. It tells you, this is fine. This makes sense. I've come this far. And just like that, you stay. Not because you want to, but because you already started. That's the trap. And it's used everywhere. In sales, where you agree to a small offer and end up buying something much bigger. In relationships, where small compromises slowly turn into big sacrifices. Even in everyday conversations, where a simple agreement leads to something you didn't expect. And the scary part is, it doesn't feel like manipulation. It feels like your own consistency, your own decision, your own responsibility. But is it really? Or are you just following a path that began with one small yes? Now imagine someone who understands this perfectly. They won't rush you. They won't push you. They'll simply start small and let your own mind do the rest. Step by step, choice by choice, until you're fully committed. And by then, walking away feels like losing something, even if staying is costing you more. That's when manipulation becomes control, not forced, but accepted. And once you're inside this loop, breaking free takes awareness. It takes courage. It takes the ability to stop and say, wait, this isn't what I wanted. But most people never say that. They just keep going. Because stopping feels harder than continuing. And that's exactly what the manipulator wants.
There's one thing about the human mind that makes it incredibly powerful, and at the same time, incredibly easy to control. It's not logic. It's not intelligence. It's emotion. Because no matter how smart you are, no matter how careful you think you are, the moment your emotions take over, your decisions stop being yours. Let's slow this down. Have you ever said something in anger and later thought, why did I say that? Or trusted someone too quickly just because they made you feel understood? Or made a quick decision because you felt scared or excited or pressured? That's not coincidence. That's how your brain is wired. Emotions are fast. Logic is slow. And manipulation always chooses speed. This is the fourth technique, emotional triggering. And it works by activating specific feelings at the right moment. Because when a strong emotion is triggered, your brain switches modes, from thinking to reacting. And once you're reacting, you're no longer analyzing. You're just responding. Now imagine someone who knows which emotion to trigger and when. If they want you to act fast, they create urgency. This offer ends tonight. You're going to miss out. This is your last chance. Suddenly, you feel pressure. And pressure doesn't allow thinking. It forces decisions. If they want your trust, they create connection. I understand you. I've been through the same thing. You're not alone. Now you feel safe. And safety opens your mind. If they want control, they create fear. What if this goes wrong? What if you lose everything? What if it's too late? Fear shrinks your thinking. It makes you choose the safest option, even if it's not the best one. And here's the dangerous part. These emotions don't feel fake. They feel real. Because they are real. Your heart races. Your thoughts speed up. Your body reacts. And in that moment, you don't question the source. You just follow the feeling.
That's how decisions get hijacked. Now think about this. How many of your decisions were made in a calm state? And how many were made when you felt something intense? Excitement, fear, anger, pressure. That's where manipulation lives. Not in your logic, but in your emotions. Because emotions don't ask, "Is this right?" They ask, "What feels right right now?" And right now is where mistakes happen. Now picture someone who understands your emotional triggers. They know what makes you feel valued, what makes you feel insecure, what makes you react instantly. They don't need to argue with you. They don't need to convince you. They just need to trigger you. And once the emotion is active, you do the rest. You justify. You decide. You act. And later, you wonder why. That's the power of emotional manipulation. It doesn't control your mind directly. It controls the state your mind is in. And once your state is controlled, your decisions follow. But here's the good news. The moment you recognize the emotion, the moment you pause and say, "Why am I feeling this right now?" you break the pattern. Because awareness slows you down. And when you slow down, you start thinking again. And when you start thinking, you take back control.
There's a point where manipulation stops feeling like influence and starts feeling like confusion. Not confusion about the situation, but confusion about yourself, your thoughts, your memory, your reality. Have you ever been in a moment where you clearly remember something happening one way, but the other person keeps insisting, "No, that's not what happened. You're overthinking. You're imagining things." At first, you resist. You know what you saw. You know what you felt. But they stay calm, confident, consistent. And slowly, something inside you starts to shift. You begin to question yourself. Wait, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe it's my fault. That's not a misunderstanding. That's the fifth technique, gaslighting. And this one is the most dangerous of all. Because it doesn't just control your decisions, it destroys your trust in yourself. Let's go deeper. Gaslighting doesn't happen suddenly. It starts small. A detail denied here. A memory questioned there. Nothing too obvious, nothing too aggressive. Just enough to plant doubt. And once doubt enters your mind, it grows. Because your brain doesn't like uncertainty, so it tries to resolve it. And the easiest way to resolve doubt is to trust the other person more than yourself. That's the trap. You stop relying on your own memory, your own instincts, your own understanding of reality, and start depending on them for clarity, for validation, for truth. And once that happens, control is complete. Because now, they don't need to manipulate your choices, or trigger your emotions, or guide your decisions. They just need to tell you what's real, and you'll believe it, even if it's not. That's the level of power we're talking about. And the scariest part is, it can happen so slowly that you don't even notice you're losing yourself. Now stop for a second. Think about everything we've talked about. The familiarity that builds trust. The choices that aren't really choices. The small commitments that trap you. The emotions that take control. The doubt that breaks your reality. This isn't random. This is a system. a pattern, a sequence. And once you see the sequence, you start recognizing it everywhere. In conversations, in marketing, in relationships, even in the way people talk to you daily. But here's the truth. This video was never about fear. It was about awareness. Because manipulation only works in the dark. It only works when you don't question, when you don't notice, when you don't pause. The moment you become aware, everything changes. You start seeing patterns. You start slowing down decisions. You start asking better questions. Why am I feeling this? Why am I choosing this? Who benefits from this decision? And those questions, they break control. They bring clarity. They bring power back to you. Because at the end of the day, no one can control a mind that is aware. No one can manipulate someone who questions the frame. No one can confuse someone who trusts their own reality. So the next time something feels off, don't ignore it. Pause. Observe. Think. Because awareness is your strongest defense. And once you have it, you don't just avoid manipulation, you rise above it. Most people will watch this video, understand it, and forget it. But a few will start noticing. And once you start noticing,